welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. You know what Christy Mathewson wasn't worried about? SIERA. When you're thinking about Pedro Siriaco, I mean, the only one that can compete is maybe Hannes Wagner's 1908 season. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Kern.
Like, if we just clip together every time we've talked about him on other people's profiles, we've done a Mickey Cochran episode.
I can't get past Rabbit Marinville. It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Kern. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I am doing well today. We've been very busy with our lives in the last week or so. You know what? We may or may not have multiple platforms to talk baseball now. But this is our Major League Baseball platform, and we're getting back to that today, which is dope.
Yeah, getting back to it. And yeah, I mean, there's, for those unaware, there are multiple leagues to enjoy some baseball.
Yeah.
So specifically one in New England, check out the New England Collegiate Baseball League, because that's a good one to watch, and go to watch.necbl.com to experience the
and also subscribe to the daily newsletter.
Yes.
To check out our game recaps every day. Check our social medias at the NECBL on Instagram and Twitter for a video that I just made about our recipients of our weekly award recipients for this week, our player and pitcher of the week. Chris and I, we're expanding our baseball horizons this summer. We're talking about college ball as well, which is
for sure.
It's been dope. It's been very fun.
Yeah, it has been. Still getting used to it for sure, but it's a good world out there.
Absolutely.
So
also, just note, shout out to both of us wearing Springfield shirts right now, completely unplanned.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that.
I didn't notice that until a second ago.
Yeah, just different styles, and then I got the Springfield College banner in the back. You know, it's a good reminder of where the show started, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
On the campus of Springfield College, but some news to talk about for sure. Kind of a newsworthy past few days, at least in terms of how teams are trending, the lineup of the standings, but also a big announcement coming from Los Angeles. It looks like Walker Buehler, who finished, I believe, fourth in the Cy Young last year, after a very quality season where he had a mid-2s ERA, a very low 3s FIP, but was kind of average this year, and just was announced to have an injury in his elbow that will keep him out for about 3 months. And the Dodgers rotation was already kind of, it's hard to identify a weak spot with the Dodgers, but if there was one, you could argue that it might be their starting rotation, and it just took a big blow with this Walker Buehler news.
Yes, it did. Walker Buehler, a strained forearm, I believe it was. Strained forearm. That's going to place him on the 15-day IL. He's been shut down for 6 to 8 weeks, so that's, it's around the same. Is it the same injury as Scherzer?
I believe Scherzer was an oblique. Okay,
it's the same timeline, though, 6 to 8 weeks. Scherzer's throwing bullpens again already, though, which is crazy. But
no one's surprised.
It's so wild what has happened to this Dodgers rotation. I mean, you look back at the start of the 2021 season, there were 7 legitimate, great starters in there. And since then, Dustin May went down with Tommy John surgery. There's now Walker Buehler that has gone down. There was a whole thing with a free agent signing that, I think we all know what happened there. That was obviously a little more out of the Dodgers' control. Clayton Kershaw has had his ups and downs going on the injured list last year, this year. So, I mean, it's been tough for them. They've especially been in a tough stretch lately. They got swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates at home a couple weeks ago. They split a series at home with the New York Mets. They did sweep a mini series in Chicago against the White Sox. And then this weekend, a tough series. They get swept by the Giants, who didn't necessarily put out their best rosters over the weekend. Like if you go ahead and look at the lineup they put out on Saturday, where they shut out the Dodgers, I believe Sam Long started that game for them, and like Mike Yastrzemski didn't play that game. Jock Peterson didn't play that game. Several of their more well-known players were on the bench that game, and the Giants ended up winning. What was it, 2-4? I think 2-3, 3-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was part of the weekend. It's the offense hasn't really been going. The pitching's been all right. Pitching's been fine, honestly.
Right.
But we talked about this being the best team ever assembled in March or whenever, in March when they signed Freddie Freeman, basically. And the Dodgers are they're 37-23, which is good. They're still in first place by only half a game. Padres are half a game out. The Giants are 3.5 games out. So, I mean, this division is by no means over. They're not running away with it, much like some other teams. You look at the Yankees, you look at the Astros, teams that are in full control of their division right now. The Dodgers are not in that position. And, maybe that's because they have some other talented teams in their division. It's also in a way because they are kind of underperforming and they've had these injuries like to Walker Buehler.
Yeah, for sure. Walker Buehler, like he's obviously, you can debate where he is like on a league scale, but he's definitely 100% a key contributor to that Dodgers rotation. And looking at the statistics of the Dodgers starting rotation, their ERA does lead the league with their FIP is 6th in the league in all of Major League Baseball. It's a 2.73 ERA and a 3.65 FIP, so it indicates that the defense is kind of helping that team out, and also just like looking at the rotations, like strikeout rate, it's not. I think it's not necessarily what it used to be back in its prime, and Buehler being out of that is gonna contribute to that. And when I first saw the news, the first thing that came to mind to me was, it's like, oh, Dodgers are making another big move at the deadline, and they're probably gonna be big on the Frankie Montas sweepstakes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is kind of a depleted rotation right now. Like Tony Gonsolin is kind of holding them together, which is not what any of us expected, but that's kind of the reality right now. It's been him, Kershaw. Those have, I guess, been the primary two pitchers that they've had all year. Arias as well. He's been solid. He's a sub-3 ERA.
Yeah, and Tyler Anderson has been a surprise.
Yes, he has been.
For sure. He's got a 3.07 ERA and a 3.21 FIP.
And some excellent strikeout to walk numbers as well.
Yeah, 6 strikeouts for every walk. Tyler Anderson.
Looking specifically at Buehler, he's obviously like you never want a guy to get injured, but there is there is sort of some sort of appreciation for this, because over his last 6 starts, Buehler has a 6.67 ERA with a 4.90 FIP. He just has not been himself, and I feel like at this point maybe we have an answer for that.
Yeah,
which is definitely a little more comforting. From his in his first 6 starts, he had a sub-2 ERA, and obviously now he's in the mid-6s in this span. So, at least there's something you can point to, and there's some sort of encouragement that stretch we saw, there's a reason it happened, and that when he comes back, we can see that guy who had a sub-2 ERA again.
Yeah, that's very true. However, I will say, in terms of him coming back, the fact that it's a strained forearm, that's an alarming thing. I think that people point towards, it's kind of a snowball effect of like one thing leads to another. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, a lot of the times, forearm leads to elbow, and I'm not trying to manifest anything, obviously. It's that would be a terrible thing to do. No. And I hope Walker Buehler heals up and he ends up being fine. However, the facts are that strained forearms, it can lead to worse things. I think of, there's been a few instances like that. I mean, in recent memory, Justin Verlander went through that in terms of, he had a forearm injury, and then a couple of months later, he announced he needed Tommy John. Same thing with Luis Severino. Over a longer term scale, I remember Tyler Glasnow. He had a strained forearm that took him out for about 4 months in 2019, and then 2 years later, he needed Tommy John surgery. And Walker Buehler is someone who, he's a very hard thrower. He does it
He's very young.
He's very young, and he does it in a bit of a smaller body. So it takes a lot of stress on the arm, a lot of stress on the elbow. And obviously I wish him all the best health, because he also seems like a fine person in general. But, the facts are, is like, a strained forearm, it's a bad sign. It's a different thing than if he had some type of knee injury or some type of oblique injury. A strained forearm, you have to be careful for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who's listening knows the worst case scenario that Chris is alluding to here, and you never want to hear that with anyone. That's the worst news that you can ever hear with a pitcher.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we had to hear it recently with Casey Mize of the Tigers, and it's just, there is nothing more deflating than that news.
Yeah, it had, like, it's very difficult, especially with Walker Buehler. He's a few years from free agency, and he's next year would be another year of arbitration for him. So it's a time where he could start to make some significant money, and potentially, if this gets worse, that could be taken away from him. And recovery from Tommy John, it's a lot. It can take a lot out of pitchers, and it would be a very difficult thing to go through. However, we are talking worst case scenario, and all that we know now is that he's out 6 to 8 weeks from like throwing straight up, right?
Andrew Kittredge also recently got Tommy John surgery, or it was announced that he was getting it.
Yeah. And yeah, I think also with the Walker Buehler thing, as I did allude to before, I would be surprised if the Dodgers weren't the front runners for Frankie Montas. It just feels
after
like,
this, yeah.
Like, I don't know, they've built that reputation for me, and
because
yeah, go ahead.
And even if Walker Buehler is back in 6 to 8 weeks, like, with everything you've alluded to, there's no reason to believe that can't linger.
Absolutely. And even without the Buehler news, like, I think the Dodgers would have been prime candidates anyway, given that, I think they've made deals in the past, and I think they would want to make that move in general, just to bolster their staff, so that they wouldn't have to rely on necessarily like Tyler Anderson for a playoff game, even though he's doing well now. But yeah, like, and also with other significant teams who might want Montas, they don't necessarily have a track record of, necessarily getting the guy they want. I'm thinking about kind of the Yankees, and maybe outside of Gallo.
I don't even know if the Yankees really need him with the rotation that they've had throughout the year. Yeah,
that's true. They have been performing out of their minds lately.
Like, I think it's funny because when in years past, when we've talked about the Yankees, it's always been they need more starting pitching help. This year, that's been their biggest strength. The offense has still been what it's been, and same with the bullpen, but the rotation has gotten it together, and look where it's gotten them. They're 42-15 right now,
or 44-16,
something crazy.
Yeah,
they're insane. They don't lose games. It's absurd. Like this, as a Red Sox fan, I feel like this is how Yankee fans felt in 2018.
That's 100. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like they don't lose. It doesn't happen. No matter what the scenario, Garrett Cole gives up 5 home runs, they still win, and convincingly.
Yeah, for sure.
Wild.
Yeah, it is very wild. So yeah, there's with the Walker Buehler thing, it sucks for the Dodgers. It could suck worse, but you don't want to dive too deep into it, I guess.
Yeah, we cross that bridge when we get there.
Do we want
I'm
to
sure
briefly talk a little bit about? We didn't think about it before the show, but do we briefly want to talk about the Casey Mize thing?
Yeah, we can do that.
'Cause yeah, that's tough news. The Tigers are kind of a developing team. We thought they'd develop a little bit more this year, but they kind of haven't shown that thus far. And part of it might be that, Casey Mize has been out for most of the year. But yeah, Casey Mize, obviously number 1 overall draft pick in the 2018 MLB draft. He was a top prospect coming up. He's pitched a couple years in the big leagues. I think last year was officially his rookie season, and he was good from an ERA standpoint, 3.71 ERA. He was clearly developing, getting better. Was only able to make 2 starts this year, and then just got Tommy John. That's a tough one from it. Another young pitcher, just where his success is going to have to be a little delayed.
I think the most painful thing about this is that this is probably the worst time of year to get Tommy John surgery as far as, what we're looking at as far as a return standpoint, because not only is Casey Mize unquestionably out for 2022, but we're not even really sure about 2023 at this point. Like, if he's back in 2023, it's going to be late in the season, August, September at the absolute earliest. There's really no looking around that. So the Tigers, they're in a stage right now where they really can't be having this happen. They need guys like Casey Mize to help the team as they are up and coming in this division, and not having him for these next 2 years is really going to be tough on them.
Yeah, that's a great point you make. It's June. So yeah, the recovery time, getting back into competition, it takes, 15-16 months typically. Every case is different, but Chris Sale is an example I'm thinking of, where he got Tommy John surgery in
March of 2020.
Yeah, March of 2020, and he came back around August of 2021. So yeah, that's 16 months. And
not only that, but once you come back, it's not like you're just going 7 innings, throwing 100 pitches. You have to be very limited in your counts. So if Casey Mize is back in 2023, he's going to be on pitch limits. He's not going to be able to go through a big chunk of the game. And whatever position the Tigers are in come 2023, without Casey Mize, they're not going to be in the position they want to be in.
Yeah, for sure. He's as you kind of allude to, he's not going to be at full Casey Mize potential until 2024, most likely.
At best, yeah.
Unless he has this a crazy recovery time.
At this age, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it just just doesn't typically happen. And the Tigers are definitely going to be safe with him because he is a valuable asset to that franchise in general. I mean, it was, when they had the first pick 4 years ago, he was the guy that they took. So obviously has a lot of value. He's in his age 25 season. So, even when he comes back, he'll be in his mid to late 20s. So it's a very valuable asset. So they will, be careful with him. And the success of the Tigers, the highest success will probably be in the next few years when, Casey Mize is fully back. Tarek Skubal will probably be, continuing success, and Torkelson and Riley Green will have
Alex Fado,
a
Matt
couple
Manning.
years. Yeah, a couple years under their belt.
The really tough thing about this is that, when the Tigers drafted Casey Mize, if you asked Al Avila, which years are you really thinking about in terms of his success. He's probably saying 2022 to 23.
Yeah.
That's
Or-
probably right around exactly like in 2018. That's what you're thinking.
oh yeah, especially like that's that's when you're going to be like closer to full development and just getting some valuable years from him. But unfortunately, going to be set back for probably a good year or so. Unfortunately for him and the Tigers, but yeah, unfortunate situation. Anything else you want to talk about with these two pitchers before we get into some of the surging or not surging teams?
I guess the one pitcher who recently got Tommy John that we didn't really go in depth about it was Andrew Kittredge. That's another tough one for the Rays. Luckily, they have, they're known for having plenty of relief pitchers that can be readily available. That's one of your best ones, though. Like this has kind of been a trend with Rays relievers. Like a lot of them eventually get injured, mostly Tommy John surgery. Like this has been a theme. You look at like Chaz Rowe when he was there, Yanni Chirinos. Like there are obviously Glass now, like you alluded to earlier, not a relief pitcher, but that same thing happened.
Yeah, it's dangerous out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think did Chaz Rowe ever get Tommy John?
Yes, he did. Like I remember last year looking at their injury report. Yeah, like Colin Poche, Jalen Beeks got it as well. Tyler Glasnow. Like there were like 4 or 5 people on the Rays that had Tommy John.
Yeah, it's a weird thing over there, especially for a team that's like always praised for their development.
How they run
that's their one falter.
It is a legitimate concern that I think doesn't really get talked about a lot, is because like that doesn't feel like a fluke. Like there's got to be some sort of flaw in the way that they go about developing their pitchers, in that so many of them end up with Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, like and yeah, it's not like they don't seem to be guys that they've just acquired from an organization.
Yeah, it's guys that, I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It seems to be guys they've developed for at least a couple of years. Like,
I mean, you even look at the guys that they got from other organizations, like Peter Fairbanks. He's on the 60-day IL right now, but he had been with the team a couple of years. Never really had injury histories beforehand. JT Chajwa, they got from the Mariners last year. He's hurt on the 60-day IL. Luis Patino, they got from the Padres. Same thing. Like these are guys that are on the 60-day IL.
Yeah, it's as our segment says, it's slightly alarming.
It's more than slightly alarming, I would say.
It's alarming.
It's very alarming.
We'll say that. I mean, like it was kind of a cliche like a few years ago to talk about like the Mets training staff because they can never keep their guys healthy. That narrative has kind of gone away. Like, yeah, let's take a look at like the Rays training staff and like.
Yeah, I feel like the Rays don't, like the Mets got so much more attention for that. The Rays probably have it worse.
Yeah, they're killing pitchers' arms.
Yeah,
it's tough. Yeah, I have no idea what that's about, but I mean they do get guys that to throw harder, and sometimes that can have its consequences if you're throwing harder than maybe your body is meant to. It can lead to things. Maybe the stable of guys that are throwing 98, the development of that can be in question a little bit.
It's not good for the long term.
Yeah, like you have that guy for a season and then and
then you have him again in 3 seasons.
Yeah. Maybe part of the system of development is an elbow surgery, as dark as that would be. Yeah,
it's almost like the Rays have that mapped out. It's like, all right, we're projecting 2021. This guy is going to be a major part of our team. He's going to help us try to win a World Series. And in 2022, he's going to get Tommy John, unfortunately. Yeah. He'll come back late 2023, and we'll see what happens there. Like, it almost seems like that's the blueprint
Yeah, I mean, like, where's whatever happened to Nick Anderson too? By the way,
He has I mean, he was hurt last year and he's hurt this year as well. He's a strained back, so that's much different.
yeah,
That might be more of a him thing
that could be, yeah,
because injuries happen regardless of who training staffs are. So,
yeah,
that one might just be him.
yeah, could be for sure.
Yeah. Sadly, that's not even like close to the biggest story involving the Rays bullpen right now.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Jason.
We'll hold that conversation for hopefully never, but
yeah, yeah, it's not. We're more of an analytical show, so
yeah,
we'll stave away from that. talk about the numbers. But anyway, so speaking of numbers, where should we start? The Braves have won what, 11 in a row?
11 in a row.
Yeah,
they are doing an early simulation of the 2021 like redo. They're only 5.5 games back of the Mets right now.
They're screwing themselves over.
Yeah, well, what are you doing? You're supposed to wait 2 months for this.
Yeah, geez. You're gonna now reacquire Jock Peterson? No, you can't acquire him. He's too good.
He's too good, and he's on a team that actually needs him.
Yeah.
He's gonna cost you way more now.
Yeah. Sorry, you can't trade for Jorge Soler. He's too expensive.
He's too expensive. Yeah, he's under contract.
Under contract with your division. Although they did trade for a Marlins outfielder last year, in
That's
Adam
true.
Duvall. Although, I don't know. Duvall was always a Brave. Even when he was a Marlin, he was a Brave.
Even when he was a Red.
Yeah.
Before he was a Brave.
Yeah. He was just he's always.
When he was in the 2016 Home Run Derby, I was like, there goes Braves legend Adam Duvall, who has never stepped foot in the home clubhouse at Turner Field at that point.
Yeah. The Braves have won 11 in a row. They're feeding off some bad competition for sure. I should pull up their schedule.
You know what? They're doing what they got to do.
Exactly. Like, people will be like, they're facing
the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, the A's, the Pirates. Yeah, yeah.
But it's like you're expected to go maybe 8-3, 9-2, but they're they're going 11.
And if you do that, there's nothing wrong with that. No one's going to criticize the Braves for being like, well, you only went 8-3 against those 4 opponents.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're oh wow, and they got the Nationals and Cubs as the next 2 series, and then they have the Giants and Dodgers. So
yeah.
So really they should if they're not on a 17-game win streak, what are we doing? Like, it's time to sell. Ronald Acuna Jr. is not the future of this team. You're paying him way too much. Same with Ozzie Albies. Same with every other player on your team that is just way too overpaid.
Yeah. Yeah. 35 million. Come on. 35 million.
That's not per year, like just as the whole contract.
Literally. Atlanta, pitching wise, on this 11-game win streak, they have a 2.47 ERA and a 2.74 FIP, and are third in pitcher FWAR. So that's good from that perspective. And then their lineup, which is what they're more known for. I'll get the stats for that. But they've just been. It seems like they've had mostly easy wins as well. They scored in each of these series. In each of their last 3 series, they've had a 10-run game at least, like a double-digit run game.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been very stressful for the Braves for the most part. And so they're third in pitcher FWAR, and they're third in in position player FWAR as well in this span. So they're getting it done from all angles. I guess we should talk about what this could mean for the NL East.
It means it might not be as much of a runaway as we think.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, they're only 5.5 games back of the Mets, who were up, I think, 9 games at the most, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, this one, I don't know. I mean, there's still a lot of time left. It's weird because the Mets haven't even played bad lately. Like they haven't been, they haven't been amazing like they were, or should I say amazing like they were in April and May. But
yeah, there hasn't been a
Atlanta.
collapse.
It's also the fact that Philadelphia has been doing so well since they fired Girardi.
Yeah. The Mets haven't collapsed by any means. They're 40-22. They have the best record in the National League. Yeah, they do.
They are. I mean, they aren't, playing their best baseball either. But
they aren't playing their best baseball. But they're doing decent for them not having Scherzer and DeGrom around.
For sure. As well as McGill for some time. He's back now, but they are currently 6-5 in June. So that's not the greatest.
And they played the Dodgers,
the Padres, the Angels.
Yeah, they played.
Which, the Angels aren't exactly the opponent they used to be right now, but
yeah, but they did play the Dodgers and the Padres on the road. Mm-hmm. So they did kind of they treaded water for sure. So yeah, with that division race, even when the Mets were at their largest deficit, you always knew there was the looming threat of the Braves. It was just a matter of, it wasn't a matter of if they were going to get hot. It was a matter of when. And, now they're getting hot. And yeah, this is just something the Mets are going to have to deal with. So it's kind of a thing, how are the Mets going to respond? I think we kind of know what the Braves are going to do. They're probably going to be their win total on the year is probably going to be low to mid 90s. And it's can the Mets match that? So we'll see.
Mike Petriello had a really interesting article a few weeks ago for MLB.com talking about how, the Mets, if you look at the numbers, they've been, on the luckier side. They had one of the lower hard hit rates in baseball, but they have one of the best batting averages. They definitely lead the league in batting average. I know that. But Petriello mentioned that, half their schedule to that point had been against the 4 worst defensive teams in the league.
Ooh.
It was the Rockies, Giants, Phillies, and Nationals.
Okay. Yeah. That's
which is very intriguing. It was a very good read. I would, if it's on the it's still on the Baseball Savant front page. You have to scroll down a little bit, but I would definitely give it a read. But I checked it out.
Anytime I read one of those articles, for sure. Anytime I read one of those articles, I love it.
He mentioned, so apparently there's a stat on Savant where it's the OAA against you, essentially. So it's how good or bad the defense is against your offense. The Mets were at -24, and the second best was the Rockies at -18.
Yeah.
So
they're playing.
There have been very poor defenses against the Mets. Maybe that was part of Buck Showalter's plan coming in. But he also mentioned, so in 32 games against Colorado, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Washington, the team had a 335 BABIP, a 770 OPS, 5.6 runs per game. And then in all the other games, 282 BABIP, 713 OPS, 4.5 runs per game. So they were definitely performing much better against the teams with the poor defenses. That is definitely something that's worth looking into, because I did mention earlier in the season, it seems like they've only played the Phillies and Nationals.
You said that the 4 worst defenses were what? Nationals, Phillies,
Rockies,
Giants. Okay, so they're not all bad pitching staffs.
No,
Phillies and Giants have reputable pitching staffs. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so I mean that could be a part of how the NL East still goes. I mean, they still have games against the Phillies and Nationals, just not as many as they have to this point.
Yeah, that is something to consider, because that offense has been performing pretty well after not really performing that well last year. Had some down years from some guys, and they're picking it up this year. So yeah, that should be interesting to watch.
Yes.
And the Braves are always a looming threat. They've been, there's a reason why they've won the division in the last, 4 years in a row, from 2018 to 2021. So yeah,
the NL East isn't over, and that doesn't even just mean, Mets Braves. Like the Phillies are very much still in it, in my opinion.
oh yeah, like there's something off the field, like that, there are some things. Oh, excuse me. There are some things that numbers can't really measure. And what's going on with the Phillies, like there's more than just stats you can go off. There's something in the clubhouse probably going on there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do recall saying that if the Mets are like at least 3 up when Scherzer and DeGrom are back, watch out. I don't know. I think I still stand by that, but it's very possible that they're not 3 games up when Scherzer and DeGrom come back, because that's, that'll be another month or so. So yeah, we'll keep tabs on that for sure. So I guess that transitions, into the Philadelphia Phillies, who won 9 in a row up until Sunday when they lost to the D-backs. But yeah, they won 9 in a row, and even with that loss, they've won 9 out of 10 since losing Joe Girardi. They couldn't find him.
Really tough that they lost Joe Girardi, like completely against their own will.
Yeah, that contract ran out.
Hopefully they find him again.
Yeah, I hate when
the season's kind of on hold right now.
In the middle of the season, they just couldn't find a number. But yeah, since they fired Joe Girardi, they've won 9 out of 10. Well, what are we thinking about? What are we thinking about these Phillies?
Well, I mean, the offense has been coming back, right? I mean, it's not just been Bryce Harper this time. It's been several different people. What day did they fire Girardi exactly?
2022.
Yes. Okay. For sure.
I forget. Well, it's when it's before they started winning. So I have to find that. I have to find when the winning streak started.
June 3rd.
June 3rd. Wait, so
that's when the headlines came out. But anyway, since then, the Phillies offense has the number 5 F-WAR in baseball. And in fact, they have the number 1 offense in the National League. They have a 148 weighted runs created plus. That is 4th in the majors, 1st in the National League once again.
Nice.
What we talked about when they fired Joe Girardi was that the offense wasn't doing its thing, and how the team couldn't really go if the offense wasn't going, because that was probably the biggest X factor in that team. But Bryce Harper, he's been doing his usual thing: 382 batting average, 244 weighted runs created plus. Bryson Stott, your player to watch, Chris, 313 with a 202 weighted runs created plus over this span. Kyle Schwarber, Rhys Hoskins, Didi Gregorius is a 215 weighted runs created plus. I wasn't ready to see that. Yeah. Odubel Herrera has a 164, but that's kind of just par for the course for him.
Yeah. And I believe during this winning streak, or maybe I don't know if it was updated, but they had I think the best FIP in Major League Baseball going.
Yes, I believe it was rotation. The rotation had their best. The best FIP. Yeah, the rotation was the only thing during the time they were losing that was performing, because, we talked about how the bullpen and defense you already can't really expect much from, especially the defense, but the offense wasn't doing its thing, and therefore nothing could really go.
Right. Yeah. And I'm looking at their schedule, and they did take advantage of the Angels on a bad turn, and the Diamondbacks in general. Well, they, in a game in which Corbin Burns started, they scored 8 runs, and I'm trying to look at Corbin Burns' line. Yeah, Corbin Burns had 3 runs allowed, 1 earned run. But overall, the pitching staff allowed 6 earned runs, and the Phillies were, did well in that game. They also hit 3 home runs off of Adrian Hauser, and Hauser's, been over the past couple of years kind of under the radar, a pretty good ground ball, soft contact pitcher.
One of your favorites for sure.
Yeah. He's a fun, fun pitcher to talk about a little bit, but hitting 3 home runs off of him is kind of hard given that he is a ground ball pitcher and a softer contact guy. But yeah, like the Phillies offense is, they've definitely been doing it. So I guess that transitions into like how much of a role is the new management or just the idea of a change. How much does that have to do with it? Obviously, we don't know, but we can speculate.
I think it's definitely more. I mean, I'm not in the Phillies clubhouse, so I can't really make this decision, but I feel like it is more just the idea of change than anything else. Like, I don't think there was ever, it was never reported, at least in Philadelphia media, definitely would be one to report this if it existed, but there was never any tension specifically between Joe Girardi and the players. So I can't imagine that they, that the players just wanted him out and that they are playing well almost to like spite him. I think it's more just, hey, like we're under new management, like they're making some sort of big change to the team. Like bigger changes are coming if we don't turn this around. So we got to turn this around. And I think that's kind of just what's happened. And you mentioned, Chris, they played the Angels during that 14-game losing streak. They played the Diamondbacks. And like, we just made the point of, well, you're supposed to do that. They did what they're supposed to do. But I think they did beyond that. Like they went 9-1 in the first 10 games outside of, or, after the Girardi firing, because they won 9 in a row. They lost the finale to the Diamondbacks at home. Like whatever, that's going to happen. Can't win them all. But if you ask Phillies fans what they want over the next 10 games with Girardi gone, I bet most of them would have said like 6-4, 7-3.
Yeah.
Like 9-1, I feel like would have been too much to ask, and that's what they got. So I think they did beyond what they were expected to do, even given the competition.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly for sure about that. And the Phillies. Yeah, I'm wondering like what there is to speculate about the clubhouse. Maybe it was just a thing, a message to the players. Because I mean, I can't imagine Joe Girardi's like, strategics or whatever are making that much of an impact. He was probably more there because he had been in a lot of major league clubhouses before, and just kind of had that experience. So maybe just taking out him, putting in a new guy, it's new energy. Maybe there's potential there. It's kind of weird because, obviously we're not in clubhouses and there's a thing that only the players really know about in terms of like why maybe there might be a new energy. Who knows?
We have some kind of breaking news.
Nice.
About a team we were just talking about. Hang on, let me just pull this up so I can make sure I have this story right. Eduardo Rodriguez, placed on the restricted list, will not rejoin the team due to personal matters.
All right.
I don't know if that's for the year, if it's for like now, because I know that he was on the IL due to there's something with his rib cage, which that is probably concerning because Erod has a history of heart issues when he got COVID a couple of years ago. Yeah. I wonder if it's okay. It's just until further notice. So it can be whenever.
Yeah. So hypothetically, he could be back in a few days, but
I doubt it's a few days.
Yeah, no.
If he was, because he's already not on the active roster, obviously, I feel like they could have just extended his IL time if that was the thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I hope everything's okay. Like he's getting put on the restricted list, which means he would not be getting paid during this time. So, I hope, it does kind of worry me, just whether this is personal life, whether this is health reasons. I don't know exactly what his rationale is for this, but we wish him the best. And we'll have to just see what happens from here on, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't know about the restricted list doesn't allow for pay. So yeah, that does sound more serious.
Yeah.
Hope everything's okay. But
That's another tough one for the Tigers. But yeah.
Yeah, already, it's been a down year for them already, and with the Casey Mize thing brings that down more. And then with this, one of the two very huge or maybe not huge, but pretty big free agent acquisitions, going on the restricted list first year of the contract. So wondering what that could be about. Do we want to talk more about the Phillies, or should we get into the Brewers and their struggles?
I think I had said everything I felt like saying about the Phillies, so we can get into Milwaukee if you got nothing else.
Yeah, so the Brewers have lost 10 of their last 12. Before yesterday, they had lost 8 in a row before defeating the mighty Washington Nationals. And they are now, after having a pretty comfortable lead in the NL Central, they're now out of the lead and half a game behind the St. Louis Cardinals. And I don't know. I'm not sure what it's necessarily about with the team. I think they've kind of struggled on all fronts in general. What have been your takeaways from the Brewers' struggles?
Well, I mean, the Brewers in this specific competitive window that they've had, and I'd say that means between 2020 and 2022, because it's funny, they've been to the playoffs every year since 2018, but the core is nothing like it was in 2018.
Yeah,
that was their best playoff run. They were one game away from the World Series. They've made the playoffs every single year, but so much has changed since then. How many players are even still left from that roster? Like Brandon Woodruff, Christian Yelich, Lorenzo Cain.
Yeah, and none of them are playing a similar role at all as they were in 2018.
No, exactly. Like there is nothing that is similar except for Craig Counsell is the manager, and that is it.
And I guess Josh Hader is a significant reliever.
I guess Josh Hader is probably the one constant. But
Jeremy Jeffress is not closing games for them anymore.
No, Corey Knebel isn't coming out of that door.
Yeah.
Jesus Aguilar is not randomly going to put up a 130 OPS plus for them.
Yeah.
That team, Manny Pena, gone. Jesus Aguilar, gone. Jonathan Villar, gone. Orlando Arcia, gone. Travis Shaw, gone. Ryan Braun, gone. Lorenzo Cain, Christian Yelich still there. Hernan Perez, gone. Eric Thames, gone. Domingo Santana, gone. Mike Moustakas, Eric Kratz, Jonathan Scope, gone. Keon Broxton, Brad Miller, Curtis Granderson, G-Man Choi, Brett Phillips, gone. Going into the rotation.
Yolis Chassin is still not the ace of
this team. Yeah. Yolis Chassin, gone. Chase Anderson, gone. Junior Guerra, gone. Brett Suter, I think, still there, but I think he's a reliever now. Wade Miley, gone. Freddie Peralta, hurt. Corey Knebel, gone. Josh Hader, the one constant. Jeremy Jeffress, gone. Dan Jennings, gone. Taylor Williams, gone. Zach Davies, gone. Jacob Barnes, Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, but they only pitched 42 and 38 innings that year, so
yeah,
it doesn't really count.
The opener who just happened to hit a home run against Clayton Kershaw.
Yes.
That's what he was known for.
That is exactly what he was known for in that year. Yeah, Wade Miley is not coming out of that bullpen to face one batter.
Yeah.
But yeah, wow. That is such a wild thing how it's definitely a credit to their organization how they can just undergo a quiet rebuild while still being successful in a small market.
Yeah. Yeah.
The worst season they had was 2020 where they went 29-31, still made the playoffs because of the expanded playoff format, did exactly what they should have done in those playoffs and lose to the Dodgers in 2.
Yeah, and yeah, they've won, won the division 2 of those times as well. And yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, they've been interesting. As far as this bad stretch for the Brewers, they
Have a bad offense.
in their last 12 games, they have a 78 weighted runs created plus. That is only the Tigers and the Rockies have been worse over the last, since May 31st, which is when their struggles really began to show. And then in terms of their pitching,
have you seen the top 5 players that they have in F4?
Position.
Actually, position players. Top 4. It's wild.
Yeah, now
for the season.
And then pitching wise over the stretch, they have a 5.57 ERA, which is 5th worst, and their 5th is 5.45.
Wow, that's not like them because they usually
worst.
have a very good strikeout to walk numbers.
Yeah, they have as an entire staff, the Milwaukee Brewers in their last 12 games have 7.76 strikeouts per 9, 3.54 walks per 9, and 1.9 home runs per 9, which is a real killer.
Yes.
I think it's easier to fix that than it would be strikeout to walk numbers. But it makes me think of where they were at before this stretch, potentially as a staff. As we'll wait, no, not May 1st, April 1st would be better. Yeah, just double checking on Milwaukee. Yeah, before the stretch, so I mentioned their FIP was 2nd worst, but before the stretch, Milwaukee's FIP was 2nd best in the league, and their strikeout number, they had over 10 strikeouts per 9, which led the league by a good amount too. Now it's less than 8 in this 12-game stretch. Their walk numbers were a bit lower, and their home run numbers were about cut in half. So yeah, it's the strikeout numbers are almost the most alarming thing. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, that's not like them.
Yeah, not at all. I did see that Corbin Burns in his start against Philly, he only had 3 strikeouts and 4 1/3.
Has Corbin Burns already given up more home runs than last year?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because he's at 1.1 home runs per 9. He gave up 7 last year?
I think he gave up 7 total home runs.
He currently has given up 9 home runs.
Yep, more than last year.
That is more. I can tell you that is more. I don't know exactly the number, but it definitely wasn't 9.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah, wow. Leads the league in strikeouts. And
That's
308 FIP. So yeah.
It's all fine.
It's he's good. He's not as elite as he was last year, but
that's not even a fair comparison.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be fair. Wouldn't be fair at all.
It really disappointing that Corbin Burns does not have one of the greatest FIP seasons in the modern era.
Yeah,
this year like he did last year. Wow, yeah, their pitching F4 is dead last by a lot.
Yeah, my slightly alarming is Corbin Burns. He's not going full 99 Pedro this year. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, so the Brewers, I don't know. I think it's just kind of a bad stretch for them, but it almost feels a little bit like last year. Like the Brewers were kind of lagging in the first couple months last year. It wasn't necessarily one bad streak, but
they were under 500 in late May.
Yeah, an infamous Nico Facella text That kind of
Yes.
sparked the Brewers.
It was May 27th. Yeah, they were 25 and 27. I remember that off the top of my head.
Yeah, and a little before that, they were 24 and 25, and our friend Nico Fasella infamously texted Daniel like, imagine
the best team in the NL Central, which I claimed them in 2021
before the season started.
Yes.
And yeah, to be fair, I was on Nico's side of I thought the Cardinals were going to win the division that year. I wasn't so arrogant about it, but I did agree with him.
Yeah. No, you could have understood seeing the Brewers winning the division, even if you didn't agree with it.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm kind of getting that vibe, to go back to the discussion. I'm kind of getting that vibe right now. Like, teams go through stretches. And I think also part of it, like Woodruff's on the IL right now.
Yes.
Him coming back will be a quality addition. I think the Brewers are hurting a little bit from that. And he hasn't been the exact same this year, but when you look at strikeout to walk numbers, he's kind of where he's always been at. Just needs to reduce some home runs, which sometimes just happens naturally with guys. So yeah,
you want to know how bad it is for the pitching staff right now?
Yeah, let me hear.
The guy since May 31st, which is the 12-game span that you mentioned, the guy who leads the team in pitching FWAR has 3.24 strikeouts per 9 and 4.32 walks per 9.
Whoa.
Yeah. You probably wouldn't even be able to guess who it is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gotten it. It's Jason Alexander.
Yeah. Also, yeah.
He is, to be fair, he and Corbin Burns are tied at 0.2, but because of alphabetical order, Alexander comes before Burns, which is kind of funny because it's A and B. But yeah, that's where they're at right now.
Yeah, not great. And yeah, now it makes me curious of what their upcoming schedule is and see if they have a chance to get back on track. And also, being in that division, it shouldn't be too hard to.
No, they are one of two teams that is competing in that division.
Yeah, they got the Mets coming up at Citi Field, but then they are at Great American Ballpark to face Cincy. But then they have a pretty big series at American Family Field against the Brewers, and then at the same ballpark they're facing the Blue Jays. Then they go to Tropicana. So I guess they have a bit of a competitive stretch coming up.
Chris, I want to ask you an NL Central question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the Pittsburgh Pirates they're 24 and 34. Like they're not, they're still not anything really special, but based on the last couple of years compared to right now, they're in a much better position. They're in third in the National League Central. They're 8.5 games behind the Cardinals for the division lead. They are 8 games behind the Brewers, and they have a 62 weighted runs created plus out of the shortstop position and a minus 0.7 FWAR. Where do you think this team is if they called up O'Neal Cruz on opening day and kept him there?
Minus 0.7. So Cruz. Yeah, if they just had him on opening day. Well, if you just did simple math, obviously baseball can be weird, but I would imagine Cruz would have maybe a win above replacement right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably 2 more.
That's around what I would have said.
And they'd be 26 and
32.
And 32.
And 6.5 games back in middle of June.
Yeah. Yeah.
These things have effects. They're real.
Yeah, it is. That's
they have the worst Pythagorean win-loss in Major League Baseball, which is kind of funny, but
the Pirates.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's not even close.
Wow.
They're 0.3 behind the Royals. It's second to last.
Because David Bednar is winning them all those one.
Exactly. No, literally that's what it is. It's They have an elite back end of the bullpen, literally because of Will Crow and David Bednar,
Yeah.
and they have a subpar offense.
Yeah, very subpar offense. Yeah,
The Pirates are closer than you think. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the old what's on those rear view windows, the objects in the mirror are closer than they appear or whatever. Yeah.
There's a guy, so Baseball Reference has like the Born on This Day. There's a guy named Albert Youngblood who played 2 games for the Washington Senators in 1922. And at the name note, it says name is presented as Chief Youngblood in some sources.
Yeah. I love that.
Is he a 1920s baseball player or a 2020s SoundCloud rapper?
Yeah.
Chief Youngblood.
Yeah. If Chief Youngblood is laying down tracks, I got to be first on that.
Unfortunately, he in the 2 games he pitched, he had a 14.54 ERA.
Yeah. Well, he
had a 14 and a half walks per 9, 0 strikeouts per 9. Didn't give up a home run though. So,
yeah.
I know a lot of people were hitting him out in 1922, not named Babe Ruth.
Well, it's because instead of doing his strength and conditioning, he was writing lyrics. He was preparing for 100 years later when his career would finally pop off.
He was born on this day in 1900.
So
he made his debut on June 16th, so we're only 3 days away from the anniversary of Chief Youngblood's debut.
So yeah, happy 122nd birthday to Chief Youngblood.
We miss you every day.
Yeah,
I'll never forget July 6th, 1968.
Yeah, me neither.
The offense is the only thing that died this year.
Yeah. So so yeah, that will do it for the trending teams, I guess you could say. And now we'll get into players to highlight. Or is there anything you want to get to?
No. I mean, there was that story about Joe Maddon getting a mohawk.
Oh, that
was objectively very funny.
Yeah, it's just that's just a fact. Yeah, that it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, like part of me feels a little bad. Like I could just imagine Joe Maddon going home to his wife with a mohawk, explaining that he got fired.
Yeah, it's a real.
If you didn't catch it, there was a story that Joe Maddon grew a mohawk to try to rally the Angels into snapping out of their losing streak, but the team never saw it because he got fired.
Yeah, it's a real like. This is what comes to my head when like Joe Maddon. I can just imagine like he gets the call. Maybe it's a phone call, or actually no, they probably bring him into the office, but they bring him into the office, and his head just naturally just gets itchy, and he pulls that hat off, and just in his head it's just like it's.
This might be the most Joe Maddon story of all time.
Yeah.
I feel bad because I hate that, obviously he is a well-renowned manager if this is the 3rd team he's managed. But actually, didn't he manage the Angels another time before the Rays?
In the late 90s or something?
Early 2000s, maybe. Actually, it had to be in the late 90s. Definitely wasn't in the Mike Scioscia era. Yeah. But I mean, he's been, I hate to say fired because sometimes it's just the right thing to move on regardless of how a manager is. But he got fired from the Angels. You could probably say he got fired from the Cubs. I know that they kind of had a different sort of, they were kind of going through a culture change and that was necessary, but he was coming off of a year where they missed the playoffs for the first time in his tenure. They collapsed in the month of September. He got fired. It might not feel that way, but you could sort of make the case that it does. The Rays is probably the I guess, the least.
Yeah, because he almost just kind of jumped ship.
Yeah.
It,
But I
that's
mean, like,
that's what it felt like.
Most Joe Maddon story gets fired and
Yeah,
does something like this in the same day.
I've never felt so bad for a guy sporting a mohawk. Like, you're not supposed to be like sad while you have a mohawk. You're supposed to be like,
You're supposed to be a cool dude, yeah.
yeah, you're supposed to be
No
like,
no one gets a mohawk and feels awkward about it.
yeah, no, it's a very confident
Yeah.
move, and you have to keep your head high, and it's hard to do that after being fired by the Angels.
Yeah.
So T's and P's, but he'll find his way around. I'm sure about that.
Yeah. I don't know if he's managing again, but he'll find other work somewhere. I feel like I have no idea how much interest he has in this, but I think if he went to ESPN, MLB Network, somewhere, I think he's getting ratings.
Oh, no doubt. Like, he's basically been like the manager version of a media darling since he took over the Rays, pretty much.
Imagine like the Fox MLB sets with like A-Rod and David Ortiz and adding Joe Maddon to that.
Yeah. Like three, like, and yeah, they'd have so many stories, like just being in the AL East for so long.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm already looking forward to it. There's nothing. It hasn't happened.
I think we just solved Joe Maddon's problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go. Hey, you know a lot about the game. I'm sure you'd be open to talking about it. Just go and talk about it on TV in front of millions of people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Easy as that.
Story about Andy Sonnenstein or something. Like
Andy Sonnenstein, yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you want to get into before our players?
I think that's everything. Yeah, we had to touch on that though.
Yeah, it's too funny not to talk about.
I feel bad, but also I think even Joe Maddon, like, he probably doesn't think it now, but years down the line, he'll be like, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah. You just, yeah, it's probably hardest to laugh at yourself after being fired, but like,
enough time will pass, and he'll get back on his feet, and he'll be like, you know what?
Yeah. Maybe he'll be with a new team. It'll have all worked out, and yeah, you just gotta laugh.
Mm-hmm.
So on to our Monday, June 13, 2022 edition of How About That? Who do you got for us today?
So for my How About That, I talked about a guy who I also highlighted as a How About That last year. Garrett Cooper.
Nice.
Excuse me. Garrett Cooper from the Miami Marlins. Since May 20th, he is slashing 455, 507, 682 for an 1189 OPS. He has a 234 weighted runs created plus over that span. That leads the National League. His line drive rate is currently at 31%. That is very good. It is the 7th highest among the 226 hitters with at least 200. Wow. I think I messed that up. All right. That is the 7th highest line drive rate among the 226 hitters with at least 100 batted balls. And possibly even more impressive is that he is one of 5 hitters in baseball with 100 batted balls and 0 pop-ups. He hasn't popped a ball up yet. I think the highest launch angle he has on any batted ball is 56 degrees, and you need to be 60 for a pop-up, I believe. So that's very impressive. And he is also hitting .411 on four-seam fastballs this year. That is the 4th highest batting average among the 323 hitters with at least 50 plate appearances ending on a specific pitch. And I think this is the most eye-opening thing about him. He goes so under the radar. Since the start of 2020, that is a 2.5-year span, we'll call it, he ranks 20th in weighted runs created plus and 10th in OBP among the 265 hitters with at least 500 plate appearances. I know that's not a lot for that time because unfortunately he hasn't been healthy. And also, 2020 and 2022 have both been abbreviated seasons to this point. But when he's on the field, he is one of the best hitters in the game, and he gets virtually zero recognition for that.
Yeah, Garrett Cooper.
How about that?
Yeah, almost a like Brandon Nimmo situation.
Yes, but on
Um,
the Marlins, so it's even more under the radar
yeah,
than on the Mets.
yeah, like getting on base like crazy, but getting hurt a little bit, so it's not as recognized. But maybe one day. Um, also, also a little noteworthy, he was in the Giancarlo Stanton trade.
Yes, he was.
Was traded from the Yankees. What now? Like 4.5 years ago, which is pretty crazy to think about. My how about that? Oh, I don't even have the rep sheet pulled up yet. Yeah, my how about that? It's an interesting one. I didn't really go off of like this is a how about that that's basically fully off of expected statistics.
Nice.
So you know, just this is an interesting one. I'm talking about Christian Betancourt, a catcher slash. I imagine he's getting some DH time as well on the Oakland Athletics. So this season, it is his first time in the MLB since 2017, or 2017, not 2017. And he had been with 3 MLB organizations and a KBO team since his last time in Major League Baseball. And this season, in over 120 plate appearances, he has a 322 expected batting average, a 657 expected slugging, and a 424 expected WOBA. And he has a 16.5% barrel rate. Pretty insane. Also, out of 353 batters with 50-plus batted balls this season, Betancourt's expected batting average ranks 10th. His expected slugging ranks 6th out of 353. And his expected WOBA ranks 9th. And he really came out in the A's most recent series against the Cleveland Guardians. In that 4-game series, he had 10 batted balls at 102 plus miles per hour, and he had 8 barrels in those 4 games. And his expected slugging in those 4 games was 1671. And out of 142 batters with 10 plus batted balls in that 4-day span, he had obviously had the highest expected slugging, and the next best was more than 500 points less than his expected slugging. So Christian Betancourt, he's an interesting case because his actual stats have him at like a 110 OPS plus, but his expected WOBA and WOBA difference is about 100 points, which is pretty wild. It's like one of the biggest differences out there, I would guess. And I don't know, he's on the A's, so potential trade target, I guess. So watch out for him. I think he's 30 years old, so not necessarily on the younger side, but a very interesting player, and he's hammering the ball this year with a 657 expected slugging all year, and really killed it these past 4 days. And he's getting my.
How about that?
So yeah, now we go from the highs to the lows, but we're talking players or subjects that have been underperforming with our Monday, June 13, 2022 edition of
Slightly alarming.
Who's been slightly alarming for you?
First of all, I just want to say, Chris, that was some of your finest work.
Oh, thank you.
That was very cool. I usually when you do the how about that's like you'll list off your player and I'll be like, all right, yeah, that guy has been doing pretty well. No idea about Christian Betancourt. That was dope.
I was diving because like when I was looking at the Fangraphs leaderboards, it was a lot of familiar names, and I was like,
it's tough in these times. Sometimes that'll happen over 162. There'll just be no under the radar guys that are doing like extremely well.
It's like, wow, have you guys? I don't know if you guys knew this. Aaron Judge is doing very well right now.
Yeah, and you know what? He bet on himself.
Yeah, he bet on himself. Give him.
No one's talking about that.
All rise.
All rise. Can you believe no one offered him $360 million as a 30-year-old?
Yeah. It's like I still do.
With an injury history.
Yeah, yeah. He just played his first full season since 2017.
My slightly alarming is another free agent to be who would be a trade target, but with the way he's performing, it's hard to imagine a lot of teams are gonna really want him. Is Robbie Grossman. I hate to talk about the Tigers again because
boy,
this is the third time they've kind of randomly come up in the show. We didn't plan to talk about them at all. But Robbie Grossman is currently slashing 204, 312, 245, 557 for a 70 weighted runs created plus. He is still getting his walks in, but he is just not hitting the ball at all. He's also not playing defense or base running because his negative 0.8 FOR is tied for the worst in the majors, minimum 160 plate appearances. He's tied with one other person off the top of my head. I do not remember who it was. I think it was Christian Pache, I believe. He has a 0.41 ISO because the only extra base hits he has are 6 doubles, and that is the second worst on that same list. The only person above him is only person he is above is Nicky Lopez, which isn't good.
Yeah.
His strikeout rate has never surpassed 24.9% in any single season, and that was in 2014. This year it is at 30.6%. So he is crushing his career high, which was set 8 years ago. And it has gone up 7.5% since last year, which is the third highest increase in the majors. So, I thought about Robbie Grossman as a trade target last year. We mentioned trade targets for every team. Robbie Grossman hasn't really come up, and it's really just because of the way he's been performing and not due to the fact that his team is unwilling to trade him in any reports.
Yeah. Not showing a lot of value right now. Robbie Grossman.
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, he was some when we were doing trade deadline talks, he came up last year, but then he didn't get traded because there's some potential for the 2022 Tigers, but hasn't been shown yet. But my slightly alarming is in the same division. It's with another team that's underperforming, but I guess they have a bigger spotlight on them. I'm talking about Yoan Moncada, who he was injured to start the year, and since coming off the IL, he is hitting 132 with a 386 OPS in 25 games. And in his last 20 games, he is hitting 100 with a 239 OPS and a negative 42 weighted runs created plus. In this span, out of 212 batters with 70 plus plate appearances, his average on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, and weighted runs created plus all rank dead last. His average exit velocity in this span is also 84.9 miles per hour. For those unaware, the average exit velocity is usually around 88 miles per hour, and Yoan Moncada is also usually someone that's well above the average exit velocity. I remember just looking at his Savant page and seeing one year his average exit velocity was like around 93, and it's usually consistently in the 90s. So for him to have an average exit velocity around 85 miles per hour, not a good sign from Yoan Moncada. Also, his line drive rate on the year as a whole is 12.5%. Last year was 31%. And yeah, he's got some soft contact, and when he's making contact, it is not in the direction he wants it to go, wants to be hitting more line drives, which is not happening. So Yoan Moncada.
Slightly alarming.
So that will do it for players to highlight. We're talking some guys that've been doing very well, talking some guys who have been struggling, and we'll get into a preview of the week ahead. I will be talking about some series to look out for, and Daniel will be looking at the day-by-day pitching matchups. In terms of series to watch, I got nothing that starts tonight that really pops out, but in terms of what starts tomorrow, you have, as we previously alluded to, we have Mets Brewers, which should be interesting. Brewers have been struggling as of late, as we talked about a good amount. Mets have been doing, they've been treading water lately against higher profile teams, which is kind of good. That will be at Citi Field, and that should be a 3-gamer if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that'll be 3 games, and yeah, some decent pitching matchups. And then the other series to watch would be coming also out of New York at Yankee Stadium between the Yankees and Rays. And actually, I did some slight digging on the Yankees, and every opponent the Yankees have faced, they have a winning record against, except for the Rays. I'm talking about this year. They had a split against the Rays, so it's not that bad against the Rays. But worth noting that the Yankees have had a winning record against every team they've faced this year, except for the Rays. So that should be an interesting series to watch. That should also be 3 games. Yeah, that'll be 3 games. Tuesday through Thursday, both of those series start Tuesday night. What do you got for the day-by-day pitching matchups?
Yeah. So hang on, let me just check this guy. Okay, yeah, no, that's not. I'm just looking at what I'm gonna put for match of the night. I have 3 out of 4 decided. There's one day that just doesn't have a ton of great matchups. Tonight, I don't know, most of these might have already happened by the time you're listening to this, but on Monday night, Ian Anderson versus Josiah Gray in Braves Nationals at Nationals Park. You're going to have Alek Manoah pitching for the Blue Jays in the Rogers Center against the Orioles. Lance Lynn making his return from the IL and his season debut against the Tigers in Comerica. The White Sox are going to need that. I forgot to mention, but you mentioned Yohan Moncada on Slightly Alarming, and the way this season's going, I could see the White Sox becoming this year's Padres, where every single person on the team gets a Slightly Alarming at some point. Because I've already highlighted Yasmani Grandal. You talked about Moncada.
Yeah,
it feels like could be a thing.
Watch out, Lucas Giolito. You got a couple more bad starts.
Yu Darvish will be pitching for the Padres against the Cubs at Wrigley. Of course, Yu Darvish, a former Cub. Weird to think of it that way, but he did have probably the best season of his career there in 2020.
Yeah,
which is very funny.
Yeah.
In Astros Rangers, the Texas series, you have Christian Javier against Taylor Hearn tonight. You have Brady Singer versus Alex Wood in the 2014 World Series rematch.
Yeah,
Royals Giants. Brady Singer been very under the radar this year, by the way. Chris Archer versus Chris Flexen.
2014 Royals.
Yeah. Chris Archer versus Chris Flexen. Matchup of the night is a no-brainer. It comes to us from Marlins Phillies at Citizens Bank Park. It's going to be Sandy Alcantara versus Aaron Nola.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's the easiest one. Tuesday is not the greatest day for matchups. JT Brubaker versus Matt Liberatore in Pirates Cardinals, and then Bryce Wilson and Miles Michaelis in the second end of that doubleheader in St. Louis. Max Fried will be pitching for the Braves against the Nats. The Nats have not announced the starter. Trevor Rogers and Zach Eflin will be facing each other in Marlins Phillies. Trevor Rogers looking to build off of. I mean, he hasn't had the best season so far. He's looking to build up to something. Yusei Kikuchi will be facing the Orioles at the Rogers Center. Nick Pivetta will be facing the A's at Fenway. He's been on a really good run lately. Dylan Cease will be facing the Tigers at Comerica. Jose Urquidy and Dane Dunning will face each other in Astros Rangers. Shane Bieber will face the Rockies at Coors. Tyler Mahle will pitch for the Reds at Chase Field. Chris Bubich and Logan Webb will face each other in Royals Giants. Noah Syndergaard and Tony Gonsolin will face each other in the Freeway Series. Logan Gilbert will pitch for the Mariners against the Twins. The Twins have yet to announce a starter. Match for the night. Aaron, actually, no. Okay, you also have Adrian Hauser and Chris Bassett facing each other in Brewers Mets. Match for the night comes in Rays Yankees. It is Corey Kluber versus Garrett Cole. You got a former Cy Young winner in there.
Could qualify as a 2014 Classic.
Yeah, it could.
Even though Garrett Cole's prime wasn't around there, but
no, I mean, listen, I kind of threw Zach Wheeler in it last time, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, You will have Pablo Lopez facing Kyle Gibson in Phillies versus Marlins at Citizens Bank. Dylan Cease will be pitching on 0 days rest. Hello? Did I see it right that he was going to be pitching on? Yeah, okay. Dylan Cease is going to be pitching on 0 days rest, which is really crazy. He's
going
going to be
pitching real old school on that.
Yeah. He knows he's getting fired soon, so he's like, you know what? I'm gonna manage like it's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Even though that was never a thing, except for like in the dead ball era. Yeah. Dylan Cease will be pitching on 0 days rest. That's going to be amazing. Luis Garcia will face the Rangers for the Astros. Ooh, that's a good matchup. But I think there's a better one out there. Luis Castillo will be facing Zach Gallen in Reds Diamondbacks. Marco Gonzalez will be facing the Twins for the Mariners. Spencer Strider will be facing Eric Fetty in Braves Nats. Jose Barrios will be facing the Orioles at the Rogers Center. James Caprillion will be facing the Red Sox at Fenway. Corbin Burns will be facing the Mets at Citi Field. Ronsny Contreras will be facing the Cardinals at Busch. Austin Gomber will be facing the Guardians at Coors. He's been a very boomer bust pitcher in each of his starts, but it's been interesting. Reed Detmers and Tyler Anderson will be facing each other at Dodger Stadium. Matchup of the day, once again, comes from Rays Yankees. It's going to be Shane McClanahan versus Nestor Cortez.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, hard to get.
Like real specific breakout pitchers for this year.
Lefties, too.
Lefties, yep. Yeah.
For on Thursday, Chris and I will both be in attendance for Paul Blackburn to face the Red Sox. We know that he's been having a breakout year, and we wanted to see it for ourselves. It was also very unplanned, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, found out today.
We found out right before we were recording that we happened to both be going to the game.
Yeah.
Tyler Wells and Kevin Gausman will be facing each other in Orioles Blue Jays. This is on Thursday. Tristan McKenzie will be facing the Rockies for the Guardians. Zach Wheeler will be facing the Nationals for the Phillies. Drew Rasmussen and Luis Severino will be facing each other in Rays Yankees. And the matchup of the day matchup of the night comes from Brewers Mets, Aaron Ashby versus Tyler McGill.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right. Well, that should do it for Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are following on social media, or no, if you're not following us on social media, follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta, and follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio. Also, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you sometime in the future where we are talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.